Location, Fort Bragg firing range. Morning light cuts through the trees. Wind rustled over the sandbags, fluttering the paper targets pinned 300 meters downrange. The chatter of Marine recruits, half cocky and half clumsy, filled the air as they loaded rounds, double-checked safeties, and took their lanes under the steady gaze of instructors. No one noticed her at first. A small woman in a worn hoodie, jeans, and scuffed boots stood quietly near the edge of the line. She wasn't in uniform, didn't carry herself like she belonged, carried no ID tags or unit patches, just a duffel bag over one shoulder and an expression, like she'd seen this all before, like she was watching ghosts. One of the young instructors turned and did a double take. "Who let a civilian on the range?" he muttered, elbowing the Marine beside him. She didn't speak, just stepped forward, eyes scanning the weapon racks as if looking for something very specific. "Ma'am," range officer barked. "This is a restricted area. You can't be here unless you're—" She reached into her duffel and pulled out a folded slip of paper. He frowned, took it, scanned the handwriting, then blinked. There was a name scribbled on the back of the form. A name that hadn't been spoken aloud at Fort Bragg in years. A name whispered more than recorded. A ghost story for the elite. And that's when the air shifted. "Have you ever misjudged someone just because of how they looked? Tell me, which country are you watching this from?" Corporal Lucas Bell didn't buy it. "Looks like someone's aunt wandered onto base," he said to his squad mate with a smirk. "What, they giving range time to tourists now?" The woman walked past them, heading to the far end of the line. She moved like she didn't care who was watching, but also like she already knew every inch of this place. Bell followed. "You looking for someone?" he asked, raising his voice slightly. She stopped and turned. Calm, unblinking. "I'm fine," she said simply. "That jacket you're wearing," Bell pointed. "It's not regulation. Got ID?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped up to the rack, picked up an M4 and began inspecting it. Bell frowned. "Ma'am, I'm gonna need to see some—" She flipped the rifle open, checked the chamber, tapped the dust cover closed, and racked the charging handle with a fluid, practiced motion that froze the air around her. Then she spoke again. "Target number 9, she said. 200 meters. 5 rounds. "What?" "I said 5 rounds. Target 9. You can't just—" She stepped into firing stance. 5 shots, 5 hits. 1 hole, a tight cluster dead center of the target. Cleaner than any of the recruits had managed all morning. Cleaner than most instructors. Silence. Even the recruits 2 lanes over had stopped firing. Bell stared, blinking. "Beginner's luck," someone muttered. It was faint. A faded outline etched into skin long since hardened by time. A sealed trident. But not the clean, modern version recruits got after Bud S. graduation. No, this one had marks through it. Scars cut beside the wings. Symbols only understood by those who'd earned it the old way. Commander Rick Maddox, a SEAL with 20 years in and 6 tours overseas, happened to be walking by when he caught the tail end of the shot group. He paused, looked at the target, then at the woman, and froze. The ink. The stance. The way she handled the M4 like it was part of her body. She wasn't a civilian. Not really. She was something else. Inside the security office, the instructors scrambled through base clearance logs. No record of her being assigned to Bragg. No active duty records. Just this. Lieutenant Ortega flipped through the file. It was thin, too thin. A single page marked medical separation, classified. Reason: no detailed service history, no medals, no disciplinary action. Ghost file, Ortega muttered. Excuse me? When someone's background is too sensitive to list, the system ghosts it. You get a discharge cover, but everything else is pulled. Bell frowned. You think she was Special Forces? Not just Special Forces, Ortega said. She had a tattoo on her wrist. Scarred. That means team level, maybe black unit clearance. Bell's smirk finally faded. Outside, she sat on a crate, elbows on her knees, watching the recruits fire. One of the younger ones, nervously glancing at her, whispered, You used to be military? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, I used to be someone else. That was it. Visuals only, me intercut with present-day silence. A Black Hawk over desert terrain. Sniper scope view, 2 hostiles down. Radio chatter. Night Sparrow, you're clear. Go. Explosion, screaming. A body dragged from fire. And then stillness. Commander Maddox approached slowly. Ma'am, he said carefully, can I ask where you trained? She looked up at him. Not hostile. Not defensive. Just tired. Coronado, she said. Maddox blinked. Bud? Buds? She nodded once. Class 279. His face paled. That class had nearly 60% washout rate. Only one woman ever graduated that class, and she disappeared after an op in Kandahar went sideways. No name, no official record. Just whispers. You're... She raised a hand gently. I was. The instructors and recruits watched the two talk. Maddox leaned closer, hands on his hips, voice low. Whatever he said, her response made his face soften. Then, he turned to the group. Everyone, listen up. The recruits snapped to attention. This woman isn't a civilian. She's a former SEAL, and not just any SEAL. She's one of the best shooters this base has ever seen. You disrespected her, but now you'll learn from her. A long pause. No one moved. She stood slowly. I didn't come to teach, she said. I came to remember what it felt like. And now? Maddox asked. She looked downrange, then back at the Marines. Now I'll teach. But not for medals, for the ones who didn't make it back. That afternoon, she led the squad through advanced marksmanship, not with speeches, not with theory, but with cold, precise repetition, movement, control, focus. She moved like memory, like muscle memory honed through real war, the kind you never talk about. Location, Fort Bragg, temporary instruction range. Time 1 week after the incident. The makeshift classroom smelled like gun oil and chalk dust. Folding chairs creaked as a dozen Marines shifted uneasily under the harsh fluorescent lights. The blackboard behind the podium still had faded outlines from yesterday's lesson, but no one touched the rifles on the table in front of them. Not until she arrived. Riley Shaw walked in, carrying nothing but a worn-out clipboard and the calm silence that had started to feel like her signature. She didn't look like a legend. She didn't act like one either. She just took the front of the room and said, "Let's talk about how not to die. You've been trained to shoot center mass," she said, pointing at the outlined target behind her. "To aim small, miss small. To breathe, squeeze, reset." Some of the Marines nodded. The basics. But none of that matters when your heart rate's at 180 and the only cover you have is a wall that's already been shot through. She paused. In real combat, adrenaline makes you stupid. Your vision narrows. Your hands shake. You forget everything, unless you've drilled until it's instinct. Riley picked up a piece of chalk. Lesson 1, she wrote on the board. Control what you can. She turned back to the room. That includes fear. Later that night, barracks training wing. Riley sat alone on the locker room bench. The lights were dimmed, and the sounds of boots and chatter had faded hours ago. She unzipped her sleeve slowly and stared at the tattoo again. The SEAL trident. Team 9. The scars that marked where shrapnel had torn into her arm years ago. She hadn't looked at it this long in months. Flashback begins. Rain. The kind of rain that drowned radios and turned desert sand to sludge. Her team was pinned down. 5 men, 1 injured. 2 already gone. Raven, this is Night Sparrow. We are compromised. Extraction compromised. Repeat. No response. She fired. 1 shot. Then another. Cover fire for the medic dragging their wounded. Then she ran. She ran through a storm of lead, through screams, through flames, and never slowed down. That's how the operation had ended. And how her career had ended too. Back on base, her story was spreading like wildfire. Some recruits still didn't believe it. You really think she's that ghost they talk about? One whispered in the canteen. The one from Kandahar? She doesn't even talk half the time, another scoffed. But others remembered what Commander Maddox had said. She was SEAL Team 9, someone else replied. Those guys don't even get listed in standard rosters. You don't get assigned there. You get chosen. That shut them up for a while. Private Nate Colburn was the first one to really approach her. He was 22, sharpshooter certified, eager but observant. I read your grouping charts, he said one day after training. Your math's off. Riley raised an eyebrow. Go on. You overcompensate for wind drift, he said. By about a 1/4 inch, on average. She smirked. First time in days. That's not an error, she said. That's experience. Wind lies, paper doesn't. He blinked. So you're teaching us to predict the lie? I'm teaching you to survive it. From that day on, Nate followed her like a shadow. Location, Fort Bragg Command Wing. Commander Maddox stood before a panel of officers. She doesn't belong on civilian status, he argued. We need people like her back in the fold. Colonel Atwood leaned back. She was medically discharged and politically volatile. She's stabilized, Maddox said. She's teaching our best men things. They won't learn in 3 years of textbook training. Ghosts belong in stories, Commander, Atwood said. Not headlines. Maddox didn't respond. He just left the room quietly, then ordered new rifle stock for her trainees, personally signed. One morning, Riley arrived to find a message scrawled in chalk on the blackboard. Civilians don't lead. Underneath, a smear of boot polish across her old range diagrams. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she erased the board, and led that day's lesson harder than ever. 3 days later, Field Exercise Zone C. It was just supposed to be a drill. Simulated contact, smoke, blanks, timed maneuvers, until a stray drone misfired, and a live round cut across the training zone. Chaos erupted. Recruits hit the ground. Some froze. Others panicked. Riley didn't. She sprinted through the smoke, tackled 2 Marines behind a barrier, and pulled one with a twisted ankle out of the kill zone in seconds. Get low. Follow my line, she barked. They listened. For the first time, they didn't see a civilian. They saw a leader. That night, Nate found her sitting on a bench outside the training yard. You saved Jackson today. She didn't look up. I did what anyone trained would do. No, you did what most people freeze during. He hesitated. Why aren't you still on active duty? She glanced at him, quiet. Because sometimes saving lives makes the wrong people uncomfortable. He didn't push, he just nodded. The next morning, the recruit stood at attention. Commander Maddox approached her before the lesson. Your trainees have something to say. Riley frowned. Colburn stepped forward. We asked around, he said. We found it. He handed her a dog tag, one she hadn't seen in years. Engraved, Shaw R. SEAL Team 9, Operation Red Knight. Her breath caught. She turned the tag over. A bullet casing had been soldered to the back. A tradition only used when a unit lost someone in the field and didn't have a body to bring home. Where'd you find this? She whispered. In a box labeled unauthorized property to be destroyed, Colburn replied. We saved it. She stood before the range that afternoon. Same firing stance. Same calm expression. But this time, her sleeves were rolled up. Not to show off. To breathe. And every Marine stood silently behind her, watching, listening, learning, because now they believed. Not in rumors, but in Riley Shaw. Location, Fort Bragg. Tactical Simulation Lab. Time, 2 weeks after Riley's first lesson. The hum of processors, flickering holograms, and the scent of ozone from electric panels. The simulation room at Fort Bragg was new, designed to mimic real war zones with terrifying accuracy. But nothing in the system could replicate Riley Shaw. She stood in the center of the virtual debris field, a simulation of Zagros Valley, where half her unit had died, where she'd earned her scars. Eyes on me, she said to the trainees. 12 Marines stood in a crescent, heads high, ready. What you're about to learn is how to move through a kill zone, she said, and how to come out the other side. The system clicked. The simulation began. Gunfire erupted, and they followed her through hell. That night, Riley sat alone in her quarters. The lights were off. Her fingers gripped a tattered field report, Operation Broken Halberd. Blacked out paragraphs, names redacted, one name remained unmarked. See, Riley Shaw, Team 9. She traced the ink like it might bleed if touched too hard. Flashback. Team 9 drops into hostile territory via halo jump. Her teammate Danny jokes in the comms, "You owe me beer if we survive this." Their objective, extract intel from a terrorist enclave. Mission success window, 9 minutes. Gunfire, 2 men down. Extraction point compromised. Riley leads the reroute through enemy tunnels. Then, an ambush. Danny doesn't make it. She drags the intel across 5 miles of hostile terrain, alone. Present. She wipes her face, closes the file, folds it shut forever. Location Fort Bragg, Command Wing. Colonel Atwood stands across the desk. She's gaining too much attention. She's training our best shooters, Maddox replies. She's a liability. Then why does every unit under her now outperform the rest by 40%? Atwood tosses a dossier across the table. Riley Shaw, Media Containment Order drafted. Maddox freezes. You're preparing to silence her again. She's not a ghost anymore. She's a spotlight. Maddox's jaw tightens. I won't let you bury her again. Location Urban Combat Simulation Arena. Next morning, it was a controlled simulation. Entry, breach, rescue, standard procedure. until a real gas explosion in a side generator room triggered a chain reaction. Panic. A steel door trapped 4 Marines. Systems failed. Fire suppression offline. Fall back! The supervisor ordered. But Riley was already running in. She didn't pause. Didn't flinch. She wrapped her scarf around her mouth, crawled under the smoke, and kicked through debris. One by one, she pulled the trapped Marines out, burned, coughing, alive. Later in the medbay, a stunned nurse whispered, "She didn't hesitate." Commander Maddox said simply, "She never has." They lined up outside her door. Private Deeks, the one who'd called her a groupie. Private Alonzo, the one who'd laughed at her clothes. They stood with straight backs now. "Ma'am," Deeks said, "we want to request extended training. Under you." Riley raised an eyebrow. Alonzo cleared his throat. "We were wrong." Riley looked at them. "She didn't say, 'I told you so.' She said, 'Then show me you can be better.'" Riley received it late at night. Office of Naval Special Warfare Command. RE proposed reintegration of former SEAL operatives. Classified clearance request denied. Pending public statement. She folded the paper once, set it down, poured black coffee, and didn't sleep. The next day, Private Colburn noticed her distracted. "You okay?" Riley hesitated.
DC wants to erase me again.
Nate looked confused. "I thought they were watching you succeed." "They're scared. Scared of what I remind them. Which is? That truth doesn't stay buried, and silence can still make noise." Commander Maddox called an unscheduled meeting. "Effective immediately," he said. "Instructor Shaw will lead cross-unit field training." Gasps around the room. "She'll be provided a mobile squad, expanded authority, and permission to develop curriculum for classified environments." Colonel Atwood objected. Maddox didn't care. "She saved lives. She trained soldiers to survive. That's all the justification I need." 2 days later, Riley led her first midnight exercise. No lights, just terrain, gear, and silence. They crossed swamps, climbed bluffs, moved under the stars. Halfway through, a recruit fell, tore his ankle. Riley knelt beside him. "Pain is information," she whispered, "but fear is poison." She carried him herself the last 2 miles. Location: Fort Bragg, Mainfield. A camera crew from a military documentary arrived. They were supposed to cover new simulation tech. Instead, they found her. Riley refused interviews, but someone handed them an old surveillance photo. Team 9 exfil. Riley dragging a wounded SEAL under fire. The caption, "Ghost operative, classified unknown." The video would go viral within 24 hours. Back at the Pentagon, phones rang nonstop. "What is she doing on film?" one general demanded. "She didn't give them permission," Maddox replied. "Your own system leaked it. She'll need to respond. Or she's done." "She's already done," Maddox said. "You made sure of that. Now she's just doing the job you never appreciated." Location: Fort Bragg, indoor range. Without asking, the Marines created a mural. On the wall, faded images of unsung operatives. In the center, a silhouette. Woman, rifle, rolled sleeves. Underneath it read, "She never asked for honor, but she gave us ours." Riley stood in front of it. She didn't cry, but her shoulders dipped just slightly. That was enough. That night, Riley sat at the edge of the field. Nate approached with 2 mugs. "Hot cocoa?" he asked. She smiled faintly, took it. They drank in silence. Then she said softly, "Do you know what it means to carry ghosts?" Nate shook his head. "It means remembering, even when no one else does." Behind them, the field was silent, but the mural stood, and so did she. Location: Fort Bragg, officers' briefing room. Time: 3 weeks later. Her photos on every defense blog this morning. Commander Maddox's voice echoed in the room. He was staring at a screen, an image of Riley Shaw mid-drill, sleeves rolled. SEAL Team 9 tattoo clearly visible. Viral, shared, analyzed. Colonel Atwood looked grim. "This wasn't authorized." "No," Maddox replied, "but it was inevitable." From a quiet weapon tech to the face of a hidden legacy, Riley had become something no one could contain. Location: Washington, D.C., Department of Naval Intelligence. Riley sat in a glass-walled room. Around her, high-ranking officials, analysts, and military PR advisors exchanged clipped, controlled glances. One of them leaned forward. "Ms. Shaw, you understand the importance of narrative control, correct?" Riley met his gaze. "Your narrative got people killed. I understand that." A hush fell. Another official spoke, measured. "Let's talk options. You issue a public statement denying special missions. We clean the media, downplay the tattoo, and this whole thing disappears. Riley stared at them for a long time. I disappeared once already. I'm not doing it again. Back at Fort Bragg, Private Alonzo uploaded a private message. She saved lives on base. She trained us when others wouldn't. Call her Ghost Hero whatever you want. We call her Sergeant. It wasn't intended to spread, but within 48 hours, over 200 Marines had signed a digital petition. Let her lead. Let her teach. Let her stay. The brass tried to shut it down, but they were already too late. Classified briefing room, 4 years ago. Operation, Red Halo, target, disrupted Civil War intel extraction. SEAL Team 9, full unit deployment. Blake Maddox had still been a junior officer then, watching from behind one-way glass. A commander had warned, Team 9 never fails. If they do, it'll break things we can't fix. The mission went dark 12 minutes in. Riley emerged 27 hours later. Alone, limping, bleeding, holding the data. The team hadn't failed. The team had died, saving her. Fort Sam Houston, Joint Services Combat Training School. She arrived without fanfare. No one saluted, no crowd. Just a dusty tarmac and a long walk. But when she stepped into the training grounds, the noise died, because word had spread. The tattoo wasn't just ink anymore. It was proof that this woman had been where most men wouldn't go, and come back with fire in her lungs. Name, Corporal Elkins, age 23. She was one of the sharpest shooters in her group, until she froze during a breaching exercise. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The others laughed, but Riley stepped forward, calm. Tell me what you see, she said softly. Elkins, choking up. Blood, screaming. My brother, he died in Syria. Riley didn't flinch. She placed a hand on Elkins's shoulder. I've walked through that too. Not a lecture. Not a reprimand. A connection. 3 weeks into her new role, a black car rolled into Fort Sam Houston. An officer stepped out with a sealed envelope. R.E. Riley Shaw, immediate suspension, pending investigation. Directive from Office of Psychological Operations. She wasn't even given time to speak. Just told, pack your gear. You're done. She didn't argue. She just turned and walked. But the eyes of every Marine in the compound followed her out. That night, over 400 personal letters flooded the base command inbox. From Marines, from civilians she'd rescued during her SEAL ops, from mothers whose sons she trained, from soldiers who'd once mocked her, now defending her. Each one said the same thing. She came back for us. The system crashed from the overload. Back at Fort Bragg, Nate Colburn sat with his phone, shaking. He'd just heard. Riley was being silenced again. He walked into Maddox's office. I want to speak to the press, Nate said. You sure? She saved me. Let me repay it. Nate's voice was calm, controlled, focused. He told the nation. She taught us not to hesitate in fire, not to run from ghosts. Because sometimes, the ghost standing beside you is the only reason you're still breathing. The interview went viral overnight. Public sentiment turned. Back in D.C., brass scrambled. She can't be allowed to control the narrative. She's not controlling anything, Maddox argued. She's just refusing to be invisible again. A pause. What do we do now? Maddox stood. Let her finish what she started. Private ranch, outside Fort Sam Houston. Riley sat alone. The sleeve rolled down over her arm. A visitor came. Admiral Kincaid, retired, once her SEAL superior. I read the reports, he said. I saw the photos. I know what they're trying to do. You're here to ask me to shut up? No, I'm here to say I'm proud of you. That broke her. She didn't cry, but her hand trembled. That evening, while Riley debated whether to stay or leave, the base lost power. Emergency systems failed. A live fire munitions depot went dark. Alarms blared. No command. No clear orders. But the trainees remembered one voice. One instructor who never needed permission to save lives. Riley. She was out of the barracks in seconds. Fire blazing near the weapons bay. 2 cadets trapped. Ammo cooking off. Riley ran in. She didn't blink. They found her outside, burned, coughing, with 2 cadets beside her. The base was silent. She looked up at the circle of stunned officers. I thought I was suspended. No one spoke. Maddox arrived via chopper. He helped her up and whispered, not anymore. Fort Sam Houston, Medical Bay. Time, 6 hours after the fire. Riley Shaw lay in a hospital bed, her hands bandaged, oxygen line hissing softly beside her. A nurse quietly took vitals, careful not to disturb her. But Riley wasn't asleep. Her eyes were open, fixed on the ceiling, waiting for the next order, the next mistake. The next time they would try to erase her. But this time they didn't send silence. They sent voices. One by one, Marines stepped into the room. They didn't salute. They didn't speak right away. Each just stood still for a moment, then placed something beside her. A patch, a photo, a training manual, a folded note. Then they left. No words. Just thanks. Fort Sam, training compound. 3 weeks after the fire, Riley walked back onto the range. No orders. No press. She just showed up. And the trainees knew exactly what to do. They fell in behind her. No speeches, no cheers. Just formation. And Riley, voice still rasped from smoke inhalation, began to speak. Combat isn't clean. It's not glorious. It's not fair. It's hard. It's ugly. And it never asks if you're ready. That's why you train. So when hell kicks in the door, you're the one standing in its path. And if you do it right, you come home with more scars than medals, but at least you come home. Washington, D.C., Senate Armed Services Office. A phone call. Direct line, Ms. Shaw, the committee would like to honor your service in person. A ceremony. Medal consideration. We'd like to... Riley's voice interrupted calmly. Pass. A pause. Pass. Why? I don't serve for applause. I serve so others can come home. Fort Sam Chapel Courtyard. Evening. Without announcement, without official orders, the trainees erected a small monument. A stone, rough, unpolished, etched by hand. To the ghost who taught us to live. Below it, a simple line. SEAL Team 9, never forgotten. Riley visited once, just once. She placed her palm on the stone and said nothing. Because some honors can't be spoken. A week later, a new recruit showed up. She was nervous, green, barely held the rifle right. The instructor asked, "Why are you here?" The girl replied, "My brother was trained by the ghost, said she saved his life. I want to learn the same way." The instructor smiled faintly. "You're in the right place." Riley packed her gear. One bag, simple. She wasn't disappearing again. She was moving forward. She left behind her clearance badge, her instructor ID, and one sealed envelope addressed, "For whoever takes my place, teach them what matters." She walked off base without a ceremony, just nodded to the guards, quiet, unnoticed. But the moment she passed the gate, a single bell rang from the training grounds. Then another, then another. That bell? It became a tradition. Every time a trainee graduates, they ring the bell. One chime. For the ghost who taught them to fight with honor. Some still think she's out there, training somewhere remote, watching. 'Cause legends like Riley Shaw don't retire. They just walk forward. A man walks into a shooting range. Weekend practice. He sees a woman, slim, quiet, scarred hands, adjusting the sights on a rifle. He watches. She fires. Tight grouping. Perfect control. No bragging. He walks over. "Excuse me, have you ever served?" She glances at him, polite but unreadable. "No, just a technician." But as she walks away, her sleeve rides up. He catches a glimpse. A faded SEAL trident. Team 9. And then she's gone. If you believe some heroes don't wear medals, they wear scars. And silence, and then subscribe. We tell the stories no one else dares to. Black and wronged, because legends live in the shadows, and we bring them to light.